honoring the first responders who served our communities. It's time for Steve Scaffidi Salute to Service on WTMJ's Political Power Hour, presented by Waterstone Bank and sponsored by Outdoor Living Unlimited. Here's Steve Scaffidi.
Our organization receives nominations from law enforcement agencies throughout the state of Wisconsin. And we look at those particular incidents that exhibit bravery and also the SWAT discipline and the tactics that were employed from the specialty training that SWAT officers must have. And in this case, it was fairly obvious to us because of the dynamics of this situation. It was a very short encounter in the grand scheme of things from the time the call was received at dispatch to the ending of the matter. The situation was fluid continuously. There was never any downtime, so to speak, or officers, to communicate, well, here he is now, what should we do here? It just kept going and going and going. And then, of course, it culminated with the very difficult decision, but one that had to be made in a split second by Officer Kuspa to take a life, to save a life.
And that last piece is one of the reasons that Officer Steve Kuspa is sitting across from me in studio. First of all, welcome to the studio.
Thank you. Appreciate you having me.
And that voice was Steve Peterson, a friend of mine now who invited me to the Association of SWAT Personnel conference, what was that, about a month or so ago, a couple months?
Yeah.
And at that conference, you were recognized as the SWAT Member of the Year amongst all, and it was an amazing group of men and women. I mean, you do some very tough work. And he was talking about an incident you were involved in. We're not going to spend a ton of time on the specifics of the incident because every day that you show up for work, there are similar situations that you have to deal with. But when you talk about making a commitment to public service, which you have done, and first of all, how long have you been in
I've been with the Milwaukee Police Department for 20 years.
20 years, and you still look like you're like 30. So good job you. Even with a high-stress job, you look like you're 30 years old. And when I heard his speech, and I heard others talking about not just you, but the men and women you work with, and I sat at your table, I was so impressed. I said, this has to be one of our honorees this week. So I want to ask you a couple simple questions, then we're going to go to break, and we'll kind of round out the conversation in a different way. When you made the decision to work in public service, public safety, I kind of know the answer because I know that your dad was also a member of the Milwaukee Police Department, right?
Yes.
Yes.
He was.
Walk me through that decision, because not every child of a police officer or detective or whatever the position is decides to go right back in.
Yes. My roots as far as law enforcement go all the way back to my grandfather. When my dad met my mom, at the time my grandfather was a police officer with the City of Milwaukee Police Department.
No kidding.
And once my father met my mother, he was introduced to my grandfather. And then from there, my grandfather kind of talked to my dad and kind of guided him into joining what we refer to as a police aid program with the City of Milwaukee. So my dad joined the police department. He spent, I apologize, my radio is on.
Hey, life goes on for you.
But yeah, my father joined the police department, and grandfather was on. My grandfather retired back in 1989 after serving 35 years with the department.
That's amazing.
And he was big into the community service program while he was here, worked out of our District 6. And so my father, after he had joined the department, he kind of walked up the rank to sergeant, and he served with the tactical enforcement unit as well for 16 years, and then later retired as a sergeant and the range master after serving 30 years. So my father influenced two of his brothers to join the force, and I have an uncle who served 25 years, retired as a detective a couple years ago.
What is it that drives that legacy, that desire to all for a big group of you to work in public safety? What is it about it?
My family growing up was really big into the church and to serving the community, and just loved to help the community and others. And I think that from a very young age, that kind of instilled into all of us And so it was kind of a calling to all of us in the family, and just following the footsteps of the path that was paved before us.
After the break, I want to ask you about the incidents that you were called to serve, right? And there's some of the most intense, and certainly we played a little clip from Mr. Peterson about that situation, which was a hostage situation, which is about as tense as it gets. And I want to ask you about that as well. So we'll take a break here. It's our 5th of 5 honorees for our Salute to Service, thanks to Waterstone Bank, Outdoor Living Unlimited, Officer Steven Kuspa from the Milwaukee Police Department. We'll continue that conversation after this on WTMJ.
911, what is your emergency?
Yeah, 3330 West Wells. That place Central. Guys in here with a gun shooting people.
3330 West Wells?
Yes, ma'am. Hurry up.
Okay, did he actually fire shots, sir?
Yes.
Where is the person with the gun?
About 3 minutes ago.
So he just fired shots?
Yes, ma'am.
One of the many incidents that you have to deal with, Steven Kuspa, our guest, 5th of 5 honorees, Salute to Service, thanks to Waterstone Bank and Outdoor Living Unlimited. Every day there's a different situation. That uniqueness of that position is something that I think is one of the reasons I do this week, is because you never know what you're showing up to. Right. Every day's, let's get your mic on there. You're good. Every day is different.
Yeah.
How do you meet that challenge every day? Because you don't know what you're showing up to in some of these cases.
The way that we train prepares us for the likelihood of anything that we're going to encounter. Obviously, every situation is different, so you take them as they come. But we put a lot of time and effort into our training program to come up with different scenarios and ways that we can tactically respond to things and then follow through as far as coming to an end.
The training piece is something that every police officer, especially SWAT team members, and I understand it's the tactical enforcement unit, because some people get miffed at me about that, but it's still, most people know it as the SWAT team.
Correct.
The training piece is something that everybody talks about, because that is so critical to what you do, every scenario. And when you become a police officer, SWAT or otherwise, training's also part of that equation. And you started as just a police, not just a police officer before you ever got into SWAT.
Yes.
How was that decision made to move you into that maybe more highly trained position?
Well, obviously everybody who is a member of the police department serving as a police officer, we go through the academy, and then from there on you go through in-services every year. To get to the tactical enforcement unit, we have a extensive training process, and we have a minimum time of 4 years before you can even apply to get there. So you have to serve 4 years as an officer on the street doing your duty before you can apply for that. And then you go through the process, and if you get selected to come down, from there you hit the ground running with almost 200 hours a year minimal training for the average SWAT officer.
I don't think the public understands that commitment.
Yeah, it's a lot of time, a lot of effort. And we even have other units within our unit that require a lot more hours of training. So in the end, there's several hundred hours a year that we put forth into just training. And that's aside from any kind of SWAT work that we get pulled out to do out on the street. And
when you show up for work in a day, you don't know what's coming. So and I think on the day of this incident that we played the 911 call, were you actually on duty or were you off duty?
I was on duty that day.
But again, you don't know that call's coming. So how quickly does that shift your day's work?
Well, that morning, I can recollect that we were preparing ourselves for our daily duties. That morning was search warrants that were lined up. And I remember we were kind of all getting our gear together to get ready to go serve those warrants. And then we could hear a bunch of sirens from police vehicles that were leaving our station off of 47th and Valete there. And at that time in the morning, to hear that many people responding from our location very quickly, it kind of rose, our awareness to, hey, what's going on? So we turned a radio on, and that's when we heard the call that there was an active shooter that was occurring.
When I sat with your team members at the conference a couple months ago, I was impressed that, again, the level of training that they all talked about, the years that they had served in some of these individuals. Some of them retired that were sitting at our table as well, and 35 years. And in this room of, I don't know how many people are in that room, but hundreds that work like you do in tactical enforcement or better known as SWAT. I want you to talk about your teammates a little bit, because I was impressed with them as well. I mean, the people you work with, it's all part of the same team. You don't do this by yourself.
No, it's definitely a team effort. And during the selection process, we pick those candidates that we think have the ability to grasp the concepts that we teach and to excel from there. Guys that we think will fit in, guys that show a promise to excel into leadership roles and to teach. And from there, again, it goes all back to training, and you count on the guy next to you to save your life if it comes down to it. You put a lot of trust in each other, and that's basically everything that we base our tactics off of is knowing that the other guy knows what he's doing. You can depend on him, and they're going to react according to what they've been trained to do.
Officer Steven Kuspa, Milwaukee Police Department, member of their tactical enforcement units. After the break, what salute to service means to him. And I'm going to ask you to talk a little bit about Officer Dan Morrell as well.
Yes.
Somebody who we honored yesterday on Salute to Service. We'll take a quick break here. My 5th of 5 honorees, thanks to Waterstone Bank and Outdoor Living Unlimited. Salute to Service here on WTMJ. What does salute to service mean for you?
Salute to service, to me, I could go on for a while about it, but in basic terms, I'll put it this way. Salute to service is about those in the past, present, and future that committed to putting this uniform on every day and going to work and serving their community. And of all those people, those that I truly want to recognize as the ones that made the ultimate sacrifice and laid down their lives for the purpose of protecting this community. I myself have unfortunately been there and seen some of those things, and those are the people that I absolutely want to give everything to, for those that made that sacrifice, and to their families.
A little bit. I wanted you to talk a little bit about Officer Dan Morrell, who we honored yesterday. He's our 4th of 5 honorees. You obviously know him. I know he's recovering. How's he doing? Talk a little bit about that relationship.
Good. I've seen Dan a couple of occasions already since the incident. He's in good spirits. He's doing well. He's recovering well. He's one of those guys. He's kind of a tank, if you will. Very.
He looked pretty solid in the picture.
Yeah, he's a strong guy. So as far as the recovery goes, he's doing very well with that. We're happy to see him in good spirits, and he shows up to events here and there. He's staying busy, and he's doing well with physical therapy and all that. So we look forward to seeing the progress of him getting back to where he was.
I look forward to meeting him in person. So you're our last of 5 honorees. I want to thank you and all the other 5 honorees for sharing your stories. I want to thank Steve Peterson, who invited me to your conference where you were awarded SWAT Team Member of the Year for the state of Wisconsin, and introducing me to you, because that's one of the reasons you're sitting here today. So I thank to you and all the men and women who do what you do. I am in awe of the work you do. Most of us couldn't do it. You show up for work every day in sometimes the most stressful, intense, violent, dangerous situations, and you do the work. So I want to thank you for that.
Thank you. I appreciate it, and all my teammates in our department appreciate it too.
I appreciate that. Waterstone Bank, Outdoor Living Unlimited, thanks for allowing me to get this done this week and do it for all of you. The news is next on WTMJ.